Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Louisa. I believe if Dan Davies is on the line, Dan was going to say
instrumental.
a few words. If he's not, we'll just dive right in.
No, I wanted to thank everybody for getting involved in watching this morning. I know it's a little bit early. This is a great program, and I'm excited for everybody to hear it because I do think it's something that we're going to face here in the next few years, and we have some nice avenues that we can have our sellers and buyers go to keep the lake clean. So I'll turn it back over to you, Eric.
Thank you, Dan. And just to mention, the Fund for Lake George has a council of business advisors, in case you didn't know. And Dan is a member of that council. And it includes a really strong cross-section of business leaders in the region, from Tom Gay, general manager at the Sagamore, to Kathy Munsell, CEO of the Fort William Henry, to Robert Niemer, president of the Niemer Auto Group. So it's a great group, to bank representatives, and you're going to hear more about that in this presentation. Mark Yerza from Glens Falls National, and Matt Harrison from Adirondack Trust. So we have been building a big tent, a big boat, I should say, for this presentation. But let's dive right in. For those of you who don't know the Fund for Lake George, we are a science-guided advocacy organization. Everything we do is grounded and guided by science, best-in-class science. A good chunk of that comes from our program, the Lake George Waterkeeper Program. And just a quick correction, Louisa, Chris is really primarily focused on Lake George. It doesn't mean he doesn't consult with and advise with other water bodies, but his mainstay is the fate of Lake George and applying science to our protection efforts. And he'll speak to that more directly. But what we have done that's so exciting is, with the science, we have created the ability to inform and empower the most diverse constituency I've ever worked with anywhere in my 30-year career in this field. And it is what gives us the power for change. It gives us the power for progress, and it gives everybody a seat at the table in protecting this priceless masterpiece of nature and everything that's associated with it, including property values and the legacy value for families who are fortunate enough to have property in the basin. And the way we work, just quickly, is we fuse partnership, innovation, and direct investment. So the fund is not just an advocacy organization in the traditional sense. We are a direct investor in the programs that we advance. And since I started with the organization, we had invested about $9 million of resources directly into programming, directly into our priorities that we're going to get into in a moment. So, that makes us quite unique in the field. Most of the vast bulk of our funding, nearly 90%, about 85%, goes right back into program investment. And so we put our money where our mouths are. And we don't mess around because the lake is too important and the threats are too great and they're only growing. We've got to act, and we've got to do it in concert. So what I will say is that the model we have created has been dubbed by even state officials as the recipe for the secret sauce. Why? Because we have brought so many people together, speaking and acting as one on behalf of Lake George. And in the process, people are paying attention. This isn't business as usual. This is breaking the mold and forging a path ahead that is going to benefit the economy and the environment of Lake George. And that is critical to success. The two go hand in hand, as Teddy Roosevelt said, my last point. The economy and environment are opposite sides of the same coin. And in our case, Lake George is our common currency. So what we do now together is going to determine whether the value accrues or declines. It's a critical moment for Lake George, And we are very bullish on the future of Lake George, given everything we're doing and given all the partners we have assembled in this very exciting pursuit. And I just want to acknowledge the vital importance of Chris Nowitzki, the Lake George waterkeeper, who's a licensed engineer and the hardest working person in the basin when it comes to everything that's needed to protect Lake George with respect to generating the science, sharing the story of the science with diverse audiences, from town boards to business leaders to public officials and on and on. You know, Chris is the go-to for a lot of the seminal information that we build our programs on. So you'll be hearing a lot more from him in a moment. But what we'd like to do to set the stage, literally, is to share with you it's not new now, we introduced it at the start of the season, but we have a new short film, and if you haven't seen it, I know Dan has at one of our Council of Business Advisor meetings, but it's 7.5 minutes, and it gives you a sense of what we do, how we do it, and the progress we're making. So Chris, if you could cue that up, and does everybody have popcorn? Okay. Do we have audio, Chris? Your mute's on. You're muted.
Relax.
Oh, there you go.
Refresh our spirits and renew family connections. But how does a lake stay clear and clean forever? How can we safeguard the timeless legacy that is Lake George to reach
Can you start it from the beginning with the audio on? Sorry, everybody. We promise that'll be the last technical glitch. Here we go.
Lake George, majestic, breathtaking, timeless, alive, a freshwater wonder of the world, a gathering place where so many of us have built a lifetime of cherished memories, a resplendent retreat where we relax, revel in nature, refresh our spirits, and renew family connections. But how does a lake stay clear and clean forever? How can we safeguard the timeless legacy that is Lake George to reach the far shore of lasting protection, so we may hand down to future generations what matters most to us? For the answer, we must look beneath the surface, where we will find the smartest lake in the world. Lake George's natural ecology is complex and ever-changing, impacted in real time by invasive species, wastewater and stormwater pollution, as well as excessive road salt use. Decades of scientific research at Lake George warns us that we're at risk of tipping the natural balance too far. The catastrophic effects of doing so are now being experienced by other lakes around the country. This is why the Fund for Lake George was created nearly 40 years ago with one goal: applying leading-edge science to guide the enduring protection of Lake George. In an era where change has never been more unpredictable or consequential, the Fund has consistently demonstrated that understanding Lake George in all scientific dimensions, from physics to fish, is paramount to sustained protection. Using a science-to-solution strategy, the Fund and its partners are halting invasive species with the strongest aquatic invasives prevention program east of the Mississippi, curbing excessive road salt use by as much as 50% with the nation's leading road salt reduction program, and reducing wastewater and stormwater pollution to keep toxic algal blooms from ever occurring in Lake George. And what was a moonshot aspiration just 6 years ago is now the Fund's most historic achievement. A partnership that has succeeded in making Lake George the smartest lake in the world. named in homage to Thomas Jefferson's famous description of Lake George as, without comparison, the most beautiful water I ever saw. The Jefferson Project is an unprecedented collaboration that brings together IBM, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, and the Fund for Lake George to make Lake George the global model for sustained ecosystem understanding and protection. The project is forging the critical path in understanding how environmental stressors are impacting the lake and what is required to reduce those impacts and strengthen the lake's natural resilience. Applying big data analytics, advanced research, and empowering advocacy, the Jefferson Project serves as a scientific springboard to what the future of freshwater protection demands. Working together, the partners have created the world's most advanced environmental monitoring system, fed by decades of research and fueled by a smart network that currently generates more than 73 terabytes of data per year from the Jefferson Project's scenario engine creates the capacity for predictive analytics that anticipate environmental changes decades into the future. This revolutionary innovation establishes the ability to implement effective measures long before water quality declines, ushering in a new generation of preemptive protection that will serve Lake George and be a replicable global model. World-leading scientific understanding is uniting all of our community stakeholders in a concerted commitment to protect Lake George. Continuous monitoring and measurement of our progress reinforces ongoing participation and commitment to our protection priorities. Such commitment is fundamental to lasting success. It's clear, whether working with partners in science or applying science to solve complex problems, the Fund's model for enduring protection is identifying and achieving breakthrough solutions on every major threat to Lake George. State officials have called it the recipe for the secret sauce. The key ingredient to this model is direct investment. Since 2013, the Fund has invested more than $8 million in protecting Lake George. Moreover, the Fund's investments are targeted and leveraged to produce what is now a 7 times multiplier effect that delivers the speed of solutions and results that mounting threats demand. On average, every dollar invested by the Fund in protection priorities for the lake leads to $7 of additional protection funding from other public and private entities. Enduring protection of Lake George requires redoubled investment. To sustain the Science to Solutions platform that has proven so effective and deliver permanent protection of Lake George, the Fund has launched the Forever Fund campaign. Campaign success will provide the financial resources that will ensure the Fund's progress in protecting Lake George grows at the pace and scale urgently needed to stop negative water quality trends. There has never been a more pivotal or promising moment in time for this lake we call home. The Forever Fund offers those of us who care deeply about Lake George the opportunity to leave a lasting legacy, to show the world what is possible when we invest in partnerships and science-based solutions, and to provide our children, grandchildren, and generations to come the clear, clean lake as it was given to us. Join us in building the future of freshwater protection. Join us in protecting forever.
So that gives you hopefully an enjoyable, entertaining look at what we do, how we do it, the progress we're making, the people we involved and continue to involve. And what we're going to do now, though, is zero in on what is arguably the biggest challenge and greatest threat we face in protecting our one and only Lake George water quality and clarity. And it comes in two dimensions, reducing the impacts of wastewater and stormwater runoff. Our main aim here is to reduce nutrient loading. You're going to hear a bit about this. It'll be a bit of a science light presentation, we hope, but nonetheless science driven. And as all of you know, anybody who's familiar with Lake George, we are seeing an increase in algae growth, particularly nearshore algae growth. Well, where is that coming from? You know, it's coming from nutrients, primarily from human uses. We can document that. Chris has been on the case now for probably more years than he wants to share. But the issue is this: reducing algae growth reduces the literally growing threat of a harmful algal bloom. And this isn't Chicken Little, the sky is falling. This is a growing crisis in this state, in the country, and around the world. In fact, New York State is the epicenter for harmful algal bloom reports, and you've all heard about them. And just a quickest point of reference, Lake George is actually the one of 12 lakes in the state's harmful algal bloom initiative, the only one of the 12, I might add, that has yet to experience a harmful algal bloom in the DEC defined term. And we are considered the control lake, and we want to stay that way. So what we're doing on this front is all important to keeping Lake George from turning crystal clear to pea soup green. And so without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to Chris, and he's going to give us a little more background on what the science shows and the evidence for why we're all in on this particular issue. Chris?
Thanks, Eric. And again, good morning, everyone. And what you're seeing are photos that we've collected from our, what we call our algae biomonitoring, or our observations and analysis of algae around the lake. And algae really tells us a lot. We discovered about 12 years ago, the lake was changing. I'm sure many of you have experienced that and seen that, whether it's from taking your boats out of the water and at the end of the season you have a lot more algae, or climbing up your steps or your ladders on your docks, there's a lot more algae, a little more slimier. And as Eric said, this is not, by DEC says, a harmful algal bloom, but it's a nuisance algae growth. It's causing problems. We're seeing these impacts, and it's really an indicator. So that's why, as Eric said, our approach, science to solutions, we have focused more on algae than water quality samples. We still sample the water quality with the Jefferson Project and our work with Darren Freshwater Institute and on our own. But really, algae lives in the water 24/7, 365 days a year. There's algae under the ice. So it's really telling us something. So we're really using that. Along with the Jefferson Project, last year they undertook a tile survey that 60 tiles were placed all around the lake to gauge the amount of what we call biovolume, or how rapidly algae grows. And that is a direct tie to nutrients loading the lake, and really one of the key factors that are the recipe for a harmful algal bloom. Here we have a little bit of our science. We have a couple slides here, but this is a summary of our work with Darren Freshwater Institute. You see 3 images of Lake George here from the 1980s on the left, 1990s in the middle, and the 2000s on the right. So by decade, we are measuring chlorophyll A, which is an indicator of algae growth in the water column, divided by the 5 subbasins or by the way the lake forms, many pockets in the lake, not really many, they're quite large. But here you can see the southern basin where we have more T Island, where we have more development, the Dome Island Basin, which has Bolton Landing, up into the Narrows, Sabbath Day Point, and then the Rogers Rock. You can see that in the 1980s, it was yellow, which indicates middle levels of chlorophyll A, green in the northern half. So you can see where it's more developed in the southern half, there's more chlorophyll A. But as you go from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, you can see in the southern basin, T Island Basin, that turns to red, indicating higher levels of chlorophyll A. But across the lake in all the basins, even up north where there's less development, you can see the increase in chlorophyll A. So really, we can see the connection to increased runoff, where there's more buildings, where there's more septic systems, the impact. And here you can see on the right photos of that. Again, taking another look at the 1980s, 90s, and 2000s, you see bar graphs here, which indicate, again, the chlorophyll A levels across those decades, measured monthly, April to November. And here you can see this blue line indicates what the high levels were in the 1980s. So you go over into the 2000s, you can see 5 of the 8 months that were sampled, you can see are higher than those levels back in the 1980s. So clearly higher levels of algae growth. But this red line right now is the mesotrophic, which means we're getting into a higher productive lake. And really, that is what we're seeing now. We're seeing the change in state of chlorophyll A. We've seen that it's increased 33% over the decades. So really an indicator that more nutrients, more contaminants are entering the lake. So really, what are we going to do about that? And we are focusing on wastewater and stormwater, as Eric said. I'll turn it back over to Eric quickly to focus on work on the municipal side, and then we'll visit the private septic systems. Eric?
Thank you, Chris. And just quickly, and I just as a further point of reference, we're looking at this increased algae growth, and it's growing faster and it's more pervasive. It's something of a canary in the coal mine. This is a warning for us to take heed, and that's exactly what the fund is doing with its partners. And starting with the municipal side of the wastewater issue, we have worked fist and glove with the village of Lake George and with a coalition of interests there to usher, including our Council of Business Advisors, by the way, to seek replacement of the Depression era wastewater treatment plant in the village that, according to the Waterkeeper's research and done in a very detailed report, is the single largest source of nitrates into Lake George. So nitrates, of course, feed algae growth. This was a major victory. And in fact, I co-testified, the fund co-testified with Ed Bartholomew, whom all of you know. Ed was CEO for the Warren County Economic Development Corp. He recently passed. And Ed and I testified literally shoulder to shoulder to the legislature a few years back to seek more state funding to get this plant built. And it's being built as we speak. Anybody who's driven up and down the Northway has seen it being constructed. But point is, the new plant, when it goes online, it's slated to go online in 2021, will cut nitrate levels by 70%. That's about 29,000 pounds every year for every generation to come. So in practical terms, that's about 3,000 50-pound bags of fertilizer every single year. I mean, just imagine that and what that is going to do to reduce the risk of a harmful algal bloom and hopefully reduce algal growth in general. And then in Bolton, we have done something really cool, and this too is with the Waterkeepers leadership and research on the situation there, and working fist and glove again with the town, the supervisor there, Ron Conover. We have invested in fact, we fully paid for, the fund did, the first ever municipal use of a wood chip bioreactor. So this is a technology that is typically used in agricultural settings, but we brought it to the plant in Bolton specifically to remove nitrates. And it is going gangbusters and doing its job. In fact, our monitoring, Chris's monitoring with the town has shown we are removing about 1,500 pounds of nitrates every year from that bioreactor. A second bioreactor to be co-funded with the town is slated to go online soon. That'll double the reduction of nitrates into the lake. So we're really getting it done on the municipal side. But there is another side of the wastewater issue, and the nutrient loading, algae growing issue, as I like to think of it. And that's private on-site septic systems. And so I'm going to turn it back to Chris to talk about the work he has led with a really cool coalition of property owners and town officials to understand the dimensions of the problem, and then with that understanding, what we do about it comprehensively basin-wide. Chris?
Thanks, Eric. So what you see here is what we call a heat map, but really it's indicating the 6,000 septic systems that are within the Lake George watershed surrounding the lake. So you can see, and this was plotted by our own GIS, and you can see the components of it. And as was indicated earlier, you know, a lot of those are centered in the southern basin, located in the southern basin. If we overlay that map that we had earlier, again, indicating the chlorophyll A, the algae growth, you can see the southern basin, the impacts and how that's tied together. More septic systems, more development, more runoff, higher algae growth. So the science is giving us the warning signs right there. So to address this, we've worked with a couple initiatives. The first with the town of Queensbury. Again, the algae growth, the increased algae growth, and down in Dunham's Bay. Working with the Dunham's Bay Association, started reviewing the systems and the state of the systems around their bay. Found that about 21% of those systems were adequately designed and permitted. 14% were marginal, meaning people knew a little bit about it, but 2/3, 65% were undocumented. People did not know anything about that. So that was a concern. This information, working with the homeowners, was brought to the town board. The increased algae growth, which is a photo right there from Dunham's Bay. So the town board supported the development of the first wastewater management district within the Lake George watershed, which really is a septic district signed up, not central collection, as you typically know, but to focus on operations and maintenance of septic systems to make sure that they are operating properly. To catalyze that, the fund invested $160,000 to help people upgrade their systems. 21 systems have been upgraded since 2015, which is about 1/3 of the systems, and we'll talk about the results in a minute. The second big initiative, really one of the largest assessments of septic systems within the watershed, the town of Lake George, again through our algae monitoring up in the Diamond Point area, saw the increased algae growth, the concern about septic systems. So they started the Septic Initiative program for the town, received a DEC grant, which the fund administered. And in that report, we did an analysis of over 400 properties along the shoreline of Lake George, utilized GIS to develop a prioritization model so that we can make recommendations to areas to be prioritized, utilizing site suitability, utilizing assessment of septic systems, and we reviewed files and sent out surveys to all these 400 properties, as well as our algae sampling and water quality sampling. And some of the findings were alarming. About a third of the systems were within their life expectancy, which is about 30 to 40 years, but a third were exceeding that and a third were unknown. 50% of the septic tanks were undersized or unknown volumes, again, leading to premature failure. And over 50% of the systems had no record or never been maintained, which should be done average about 3 to 4 years, depending on your use. So really, you can see how this was building up, leading to potential failures and leading to concerns. In the town of Lake George, again, had stepped up and developed a management plan. Taking a look back at Dunham's Bay, again, what are the results? So here you can see where systems were replaced in green, systems that haven't been replaced in red. We say pre-2000, some of these are pre-1960. But here you can see, again, through our algae biomonitoring, taking the samples of algae of concern indicating organic pollution, where systems were replaced, you can see that kind of greenish check mark. We're saying that there's a reduction in that organic pollution indicator. Where their systems haven't been replaced, you can see that red exclamation point. So again, indicating that there are problems and water quality impacts as observed through algae. So to address this, the fund worked on a septic initiative, which I will turn it over to Eric to start talking about, and we will visit a website. So Eric.
Thank you, Chris. So with all of that groundwork laid, literally, in understanding through those two critical pilot projects, we said, well, how do we take this basin-wide? What do we need to do to educate and empower property owners, not just homeowners, but small business owners as well, to do the right thing on behalf of Lake George when it comes to their septic systems. And so we created a comprehensive system, the centerpiece of which is it's a digital tool, interactive, that any property owner, anyone really, can go to. And if you go to the homepage, Chris, is this the homepage?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So if you scroll down, what we do is we first of all, we explain, I don't think this is if you back it up. Yeah, there you go. There we go. So when you come to this site, and it's safesepticsystems.org, we're going to just take you through it quickly. First of all, you're going to get a presentation on the homepage of the problem. And if you scroll down, Chris, this is actual algae growth in Lake George. This isn't a doctored photo. This is a real image from the air. And it basically, we're saying Lake George, you know, any lake loves nutrients to grow algae and other plants. And it's nutrients that are escaping from failing septic systems. And as Chris showed the heat map, if you keep scrolling down, Chris, there are 6,000, roughly, give or take, systems in the basin, up to 4,000 of which are at risk of contaminating Lake George. We just don't know. So what we've done, if you click on find out if your system is safe, we've created a quiz, a checklist of questions, so that anybody can go to this and learn as they answer the questions more about their system, very basic. Like, for instance, do you know where your septic system is? If you click on I do indeed, it will tell you, well, that's great, and it will give you specific information that takes you to the parent document. So we have a technical manual that is the, I think, definitive reference, co-written by Chris and some consulting engineers, to give people chapter and verse, literally, on what a septic system is, how to maintain and protect it in this case. If you go back to the questionnaire, Chris, and give them the tools, the education they need to know. If you can go back to the questions.
Yep, it's not.
If you can't, no worries. So the manual itself is a soup to nuts guide. Here we go. There you are. And the way we've done this is we have, rather than having to read the technical manual cover to cover, these answers to these questions take you to that section of the manual that you need to know about. Do you know the age of your system? Well, if Chris clicks on I don't, well, it's in red, and you better review the signs of a failing system, and you will go to how do you know if your system is failing? And you can read all about it. So it's educational, it's empowering, and I think the punchline though is the financing component. So once you've gone through this exercise, once you understand the breadth and depth of the problem and the potential contribution to the problem your system may be providing, we have set up a rather unique partnership with two regional banks, Adirondack Trust Company and Glens Falls National Bank, to provide special financing for every system needing upgrading in the basin. The two institutions have different offers, but both Matt Harrison and Mark Yerza, who's a senior VP at Glens Falls National, serve on our Council of Business Advisors. Two of our trustees, Bill Creighton and Tom West, worked very closely with these two banks to come up with an arrangement that will help expedite and replacement if needed, once people know if their system is safe or not, and remove what is considered to be the biggest barrier to doing the right thing if you find out you have a problem. You know, everyone is fearful of the costs. And all I'll say on that, and Chris is much more of an expert here, is the costs have come down dramatically as the quality of these systems has gone up over time. And this is all presented in the manual, the different types of systems, depending on your property, the details. I don't know, Chris, if you want to speak to this briefly, you know, what we're really talking about in practical terms with the range of costs that can be financed through these two financial institutions.
Yeah, so working with our consultant engineer who has worked on replacement of systems, you know, we compared conventional systems with pumped systems and gravity systems, and compared them with on the column on the right with enhanced wastewater treatment designs, which are really aerobic systems, kind of mini treatment plants in a septic tank. And you can see that, you know, over the long term, these can actually provide a better quality effluent and can actually provide less expensive options, because due to the higher quality of nature of their treatment, there's less work done outside the tank, meaning you can actually connect to the existing wastewater disposal fields as long as those are in a good condition. And again, we encourage, as I hope that you do, to have your clients speak with a licensed professional, get more information on this.
Right, exactly. So we've taken great pains to give, from fixing to financing, as we say, to give every property owner the tools they need, the support they need, the contacts they need to do the right thing. Because this is a classic case of every single property owner has a role to play. You know, it's a positive, it's a net gain. And for this audience, you know, it's going to be a net benefit to their property, the worth of their property, both in terms of having an upgraded system, but also in terms of ensuring we don't see the lake go from clear and clean to pea soup green. That's what we're working to head off, and we will if everybody does their part. So what we're going to do now, in the interest of time, is we're going to switch to the other major issue, thanks, Chris, for nutrient loading. And it's one that few people think about because it's kind of coming from everywhere and nowhere. You know, the sources are so diverse, and that's stormwater runoff. US EPA has declared this the single largest source of water quality problems in the country. It's very difficult to regulate. So what the fund did, working with another engineering partner, is to invent the low impact development certification system. So LID certification, as we call it, does for building sites and surrounding landscapes what LEED certification does for green and energy efficient buildings. It's the very same point-based approach. And again, we have a dedicated website for this purpose. And Chris is going to take us through just how important this dimension of the problem is and the power of the solution we're bringing to bear to ensure that we keep the lake clean and clear. Chris?
Well, thanks, Eric. So we're going to go through a series of photos of some of the projects that I have experienced around the lake. And again, this is to be a tool for people. We are not suggesting and promoting anti-development. What we are promoting is anti-pollution and anti-degradation of our important resources. So instead of having a site like this, constructing where everything is cleared going down to the lake, can we have a site that resembles something like this, resembles the natural landscape? Again, instead of altering our shorelines, and a lot of times you will see the seawalls going up where there is no stabilization along the shoreline. There's just the lawns to the lake, which wind up being eroded away, and people have to construct these, again, expensive seawalls. Can we maintain these buffers along the shore, stabilizing the shore so people don't lose their important lakefront property? Again, this is an approach that people have coming in, clearing everything right away, right down to the lake. And this is actually a photo of the same site. The arrow should probably be reversed. This was the site, 2 months before this happened. So why couldn't the house wound up being set back 100 feet from the shoreline? Why couldn't that setback in those trees remain in that setback or provide those important filter views without destroying everything? So what our goal is to create this ring of protection around the lake with engineering and science recommendations so that we can really protect that area that protects Lake George, that has for such a long time. And as we protect the lands that protect the lake, we will protect the water quality of Lake George in the long run. So how will we do that? We really want to start the simple concepts of low impact development, which are the basis of our credits of recommendation, are to protect our natural resources, steep slopes, stream corridors, wetlands. So these important aspects that help filter the runoff and protect and keep that high quality of Lake George. Lake George is a very small area to lake ratio, about 4-to-1. What does that mean? Well, if you compare it to Lake Champlain, that's about 19-to-1. So the water runs over much less land, has much less opportunity to pick up pollutants. We want to build differently. We want to take different aspects. On the left, you see a photo of a home constructed. The lake is actually down off of the left side, but this house is built back into the hillside, and you can see the number of windows on the side, which actually won't even be facing the lake. Why don't you want to build more with the topography, not into the hillside, maximize your views? On the right, you see 2 homes similarly constructed up on the hillside. The one on the right actually cleared 2 acres below to get this bowling alley view of the lake up on a mountain. Still had, the one on the left still has the same view, much less clearing. So again, just thinking about this as you approach a site. Reduce your impervious surfaces. Do we need all these impervious surfaces? We're trying to work with the town boards. A lot of times the town codes require you to have roads so wide for emergency vehicles, which is a very important aspect, but can those be reduced and done in a manner that we will reduce our impervious surfaces while maintaining those safe pathways for emergency vehicles? And paving down to the lake, can we get away from that aspect? And maintaining our runoff patterns, again, important little drainage paths in the woods, keep those protected instead of building across those, which winds up creating blockages. And as we've all seen in the storms, some of the heavy ones recently, those result in big washout problems. So just taking that into mind, and then understanding stormwater treatment, and this can really be an asset for property values. Here you see a photo of, actually this is my front yard. We used a rain garden. So all the runoff from the front of the house goes into this slightly depressed area. Water pools in there and soaks into the ground and provides that important moisture and content for our perennial gardens. And really you can water your gardens and develop something very aesthetically pleasing. And you know probably better than I do what that value adds to a home site and people's property values. So as we move on, again, we want to talk about the ecosystem services, what the landscape does before development. We want that to do the same thing after development. So after we have a site that's developed, we want to maintain areas of mature vegetation, of stream buffers, of corridors, of buffers along the shoreline. And here you can see with our low impact development certification, we really provide credits and information on particular aspects that people, homeowners can implement so that they can protect the landscape, protect their properties, and protect their investments. So again, why LID for certification? You increase the understanding and implementation of sustainable land development practices with the direct goal of improving water quality by improving land development and maintaining and improving property values. Many studies have been done, with LID certification, low impact development, that it's simply grading the land. You don't install concrete structures for stormwater. Let the water do it. Let the ground infiltrate the water. Let the ground do the stormwater treatment. Let the trees do the stormwater treatment. Mature trees can take up to a ½ inch of rainfall and absorb, infiltrate, and expirate that amount of water. So again, you can see how important that is too. So here you can see a scorecard of our low impact development certification. We grouped it in areas where we protect our resources, about wetlands, streams, shoreline buffers, important things like forests. Again, we just talked about the important aspects of forest. Staying away from steep slopes, which again can increase construction values when you try to cut into those 20–30% slopes. Protecting soils, which are so important, nature's sponge, the important biological activities that go on that help treat our stormwater. Limit your disturbance and the expanse of that disturbance, such as that home that was built back into the hillside. Reduce your impervious covers. Again, build differently using stormwater treatment, innovative wastewater technologies like we had on our safe septic systems, using local landscaping materials. You've all heard about the importance of native plants and how they actually benefit a site. To restore a site, many of you deal with clients that take older properties, restore the sites, provide additions. So how do we restore a site that's already been developed? So you can get credits for that. And again, this is like LEED, as Eric said. So you can see here on the bottom of a 100-point system, you can have silver, gold, and platinum. So as you do these various aspects, which you see the points on the right here, you total those up, and then you can achieve a LID certification project. So really, this is a quick view of the website, Low Impact Development, LID certification.org. We'll visit that quickly, but really this is an educational guide as well. Here you can see the information on the points, protecting shorelines, and we'll go into protecting shorelines. We provide quick illustrations right here to show the importance of a stream buffer and talk about the importance of that so that people can realize what it does, and the illustrations always help. Here you can see we get into the credits and we talk about why, for this instance, stream buffers and wetland corridors are important. Again, the point aspects, but again, the educational, why does this matter to the lake? So again, we talk about the important aspects, and we just don't want to say why you do it or just to do it. We want to say why you do it, use it as an educational material, and why these really benefit the lake, about improving water quality, capturing sediments, reducing turbidity, improving those important aspects which improve people's property values. The intent of this, to preserve Lake George water quality by protecting the vegetated buffers around streams that flow year-round. Methods, again, simple methods that people can use to create the buffers. The requirements, and again, different aspects from the science, and this is all science-based and on the engineering. So here you can see what people need, the different setbacks and the different options that people have. Again, we actually recognize when people don't have streams, they get credits, because that is an important aspect of low impact development, selecting sites that don't have those resources that you may impact. So again, we credit people. They don't get punished for choosing or selecting sites, but they actually get credits for that. Submittals that will go along with reviews. And then this is important, again, the other resources, the science that back this up. Again, our science to solutions approach, that people can gain more information. And again, more illustrations that show the importance of the buffers in this instance. And other related credits, so that when you have buffers, you can take a look at natural stormwater treatment or shoreline buffers to get more information on these very same credits. So we'll take a quick visit to the website. Again, lidcertification.org. And again, you can scroll down on this website. Again, you can see the various aspects of various credits on reducing impervious covers, reducing lawn and turf. And again, you can just click on this and you can go down. There's also lead into what impervious surfaces are. People can get information on what the various definitions are if they're not familiar with terms. Again, simple aspects of reducing impervious cover on disconnecting roofs, running those into a garden instead of onto a driveway. Pavement disconnection. Again, aspects of illustrations to show people what to do and how to obtain these various credits. And again, in build, in restoring, and in maintaining. Again, important aspects such as limiting outdoor chemical use and storage. You can click on that, controlling invasive species. Again, tying in another aspect of what we look at, limiting and eliminating salt use and importance of plants. So what plants can be used so that people can learn more information. And then we also, we know we don't have all the answers here, or we haven't thought of everything. And we actually give credits for innovation. So if people, even on commercial sites, so if they connect to public transportation systems, we give credits for that so that there's a reduction of impacts in an implementation of sustainable activities. So again, to go back to our presentation, closing this out, but another guide that people should be aware of is going back, our do-it-yourself water quality guide, a landowner's guide to property maintenance. So again, more information that the fund can provide yourself and your clients This provides information, everything from septic system pump outs to stormwater management to native plant lists so that people can gain more information on that. So you can contact our office and we'll be glad to provide this information to you as well. So with that, closing out just our next steps on low impact development, we really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about this. So seeking endorsements from organizations such as your own on this certification system. We are preparing a memorandum of understanding for municipal consideration to have our municipalities become LID certified communities, really communities that recognize the importance of permitting development to occur, but maintaining that important aspect of protecting and preserving our environment, maintaining property values, and as Eric said earlier, the economy and the environment, opposite sides of the same coin. We are chairing a committee with Queensbury Town Board, a low impact development committee, to consider code implementation. Working with the town of Bolton, requiring LID certification for potential development approvals. Approvals that may need some relief from the town code. So will they require LID certification? And also looking at incentives for LID certifications, such as tax exemptions. New York State income tax allows reduction for LEED certified projects and buildings. So you can achieve an exemption from your New York State tax. Could we use that same endorsement, that same program to provide tax relief for projects that are LID certified? So again, municipal support of that, a benefit to homeowners as we go forward. So that, I'll turn it over to Eric for any final words, and then I want to thank everyone again, and we'll turn it over for questions. Eric?
Right. Thanks very much, Chris. And I think that last point is key here, that we're really intent on incentivizing this certification program. So this is a value proposition. This is not a regulation. This is meant to empower property owners to follow this this point-based system, to achieve certification and to be rewarded for doing so, and hopefully financially. And we're very tuned into the financial incentives that could help drive engagement. But I guess the last point I would make is Chris's first bullet. If we were able to secure endorsement for LID certification for the Safe Septic System program from SAR, that would be a huge step forward in demonstrating that, you know, this isn't just an environmental agenda from the Fund for Lake George or any other organization. This is a cooperative effort to achieve protection of a resource that has, you know, obvious economic and environmental importance. We're doing it across the board, across sectors, and we would love to have the endorsement of SAR for this work, and for you to share this information. I'm so happy this is being recorded, you know, with your peers, with fellow organizations, realtor organizations, because there is no stopping the growth of the constituency we're building, and then the influence, last point, we can bring to bear together on achieving incentives from Albany for this kind of commitment and showing others the way. What we're doing is really intended to serve as a model for how you not only apply science, but how you bring people to the solutions in constructive, non-adversarial ways that together build a future we can all be proud of. So I'll stop there. And I just want to thank all of you for listening and hearing our story, and hopefully this being the start of a long relationship, productive relationship. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both of you, Eric and Chris. And I have a feeling that maybe some of our folks may have some follow-up questions to that great presentation. Feel free if you have, you're ready, you guys, to take questions now?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Love to.
Feel free to unmute yourself, or like I said earlier, if you want to, if you're on the phone or whatever, and you want to just type in chat in the chat box, that's fine too. I'll be watching that, and I can just relay it for you. Okay. So, questions from our attendees.
I have a question. It's Holly Dansbury with Davies. I just was wondering, so who does the scoring on the lid certifications? How is that handled?
Great question. Chris?
Yeah. Good morning, Holly. How are you? Thanks for the question. We work with a third party at this time to provide those scoring. We also work with applicants. We have had 2 projects that have actually achieved LID certification. We are currently working with 2 others. These are larger develops, not single family homes. So we will also work with the applicant to have them score. We provide a third party score, and then we work with them to talk about our potential differences and where they could actually work towards achieving that LID certification.
And if I could just add to that, Chris, it's very similar to the way LEED works with a third-party review of an application and a lot of back and forth on the specifics. So, great question.
Erica and Chris, a question has come in. Is there some type of templated endorsement type of letter that your organization could generate that either private citizens or other associations and nonprofits and things could use as a testimony letter to support this program? Is that something you could make available?
Absolutely. I mean, we can. We don't have something in the can, something ready-made to trot out, but we absolutely can. We have gotten endorsements without the use of a template because this is such a uniquely powerful program, an alternative approach to the status quo rules and regs approach. So we will prepare and share with the group. I guess we'll do it through you.
Yeah, I can have that go out.
You can share it with your team. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, we may even have brokerages, who want to show their support in that way as well.
That's so terrific because we get so much mileage out of these kinds of endorsements. Chris mentioned the MOU. We have done MOUs with municipal leaders, and some of you may be aware of this, but in creating the aquatic invasives prevention program. We had the starting point for that creation of that program was an MOU that brought all municipalities on the same page and speaking with one voice on the need for the program. Again, it was driven by science, did the very same on the road salt reduction, which we've gotten a lot of mileage out of. We actually had a meeting with, quick aside, the commissioner of DOT last week. They are so impressed with the progress we are making on road salt reduction at Lake George without any new rules or regulations, just investment and cooperation, partnership, documenting our progress as we go. So absolutely, we can put together a draft for this.
Great. Other questions from our group?
Hi, this is Kate Van Dyke from McDonald Real Estate. Hi, Chris. Hi, Eric.
Hey,
How are
Kate.
you?
Great.
I was curious about, so when you suggest that if clients are making decisions on making changes to their septic system, and you suggest that they talk with a licensed professional, do you have a list of those? Is this an engineers, or what would you recommend on that?
It's all in there like a good sauce, but I'll let Chris answer it.
Yeah, Kate, good morning. Great question. We did provide a list of providers, which is one of the pages at the top of Safe Septic Systems. .org. So there's a list of engineers that we would recommend, as well as a list of contractors. It's not the only list, and you folks may know of some others that you can recommend. But yeah, we did provide a list and those were engineers, because we just felt that would be best for people to speak with on a big investment like a septic system.
Very good. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
I have a question. I was thrilled to see that the engineered septic systems have really come down in price a lot, making that really attractive, especially in the Southern Basin where you have such a high density of properties and older properties, and many probably fall into that percent that they don't even know what they have. My background, my history is not terrific with engineered, but it seems to me like they need a lot of space. Has that technology also reduced the amount of space that they need to function right?
Yes, Louise, what we have found is that it took New York State I was going to say DOT, Department of Health, a little while to follow up with the curve. With these systems, because they are so efficient now, there's actually a reduction in the size of the field that's required for the disposal area. So you can reduce your size of the field by about 1/3 for using these engineered enhanced systems. What some municipalities have allowed as well is to take an older septic system. Some of these may have been metal, may have been corroded, and may have been failing, and remove that and replace that with one of these packaged plants. Just remove the septic tank and allow them to tie into the existing field. So that's where another bit of the cost has been reduced. I know the town of Queensbury has worked along with that, as well as a couple of the other towns. So that's where some of the cost reduction can be as well. So yes, reduced field sizes if they are needed to replace, but then if it's just simply replacing a single component and not the entire system, that brings down the cost as well.
Yeah, great. Good, thank you.
Well, and I would only add, Louise, that the real wonder of the manual we've created and the website that guides you through the manual is it gives you answers to all of those questions. Yours was a great one, but field sizes, a lot of properties are on very limited footprints, and the new systems, the new technologies allow you to do the right thing, even if you are in a small space.
Other questions from our attendees?
Yes, Louisa, Ken here.
Sure, hi, Ken.
Hi. Ken Whiting, Berkshire Hathaway. Just to follow up to what Louisa brought up, do you have any comments on holding tanks in and around the municipalities? What's your feelings on that? And in particular, if they're in working order, but they may be undersized?
Regarding holding tanks, we reference that again in our guide. I personally, and again, my background is engineering, we know that winds up being a maintenance concern and an expense for homeowners. So on that, I tend to not recommend them, but we all know that there's instances and they're there. So New York State Department of Health, basically wrote the law that they're not permitted for new construction, but they are allowed for replacements or if they're already in place. So,
Yeah, pre-existing, yes.
yeah, so it's just, you know, maintenance issues. So if people are aware of that, you know, that is a way, obviously, to prevent any nutrients from going into our ecosystem. So in that sense, it's good. But there's a balancing act. So again, just the expense. And if they're undersized, you know, people can retrofit those, add another tank on after that. One of my comments, and I know that there's some people here that have heard these comments, is just to make sure if they are being used that there is a water shutoff valve at the high water line, high water level of those tanks, so that they won't continue to get used if you reach that maximum capacity.
Buzzers and bells.
Exactly, and just shut off that water intake so people won't continue to use the water once that tank is filled. So.
So is there a requirement that you would have to upgrade it to a larger size? Let's say it was put in pre-existing and it was undersized or appropriate at the time, but now we figure that's not accurate. Or
Ken, I don't think that there'd be any requirement to upgrade unless the home was looking at putting in a addition or adding bedrooms, because there is again, a formula by Department of Health to require a particular tank size for holding tanks based on the number of bedrooms. So if a homeowner is comfortable with bringing in a septic hauler more often, I think that's their own decision. I would probably recommend enlarging that just to reduce the number of trips and the inconvenience of having them come. But, you know, I think that would be, again, more of a decision by the homeowner themselves.
and some of these properties are so small you can't do an engineered system. That's why.
Understood. Yeah, there are specific properties and specific conditions. And again, that's why we always recommend to speak with a design professional to understand all the aspects of the constraints of a site, the size of the site, the flows and the use of the property. You know, big thing that I'm sure a lot of you have heard of, you know, what is the use of the property? Are they rentals nowadays? And the burden that can have on a system are all components that people should consider and must consider.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Good question, Ken.
I have one question. Linda Gay Wood from Coldwell Banker King George Realty. For folks that are interested in getting up into this area and they're not necessarily looking at being able to invest on Lake George, is there a recommended contact person for someone that may be looking at Loon Lake, Schroon River, Hudson River? Because these are other venues that are all being impacted, not just Lake George, you know, Trout Lake, you know, there's, well, you know, all the lakes around. There are other options. What would be your recommendations for folks that are trying to be respectful and informed consumers and hopefully residents?
Well, I'll take a first crack. That's a great question. And thank you, Linda. And it goes back to the notion that what we're really trying to do is create a model, an example for not just Lake George, but lots of places, because you are so right. Those other water bodies are facing the very same issues. And on the septic side, the guide that's been done, the website we've created, that works for any water body. The financing piece won't necessarily work.
No, but the education part will.
Education and how to know if your system is safe and what to do if it isn't. Mm-hmm. And who knows, maybe if somebody is really interested, they can speak and share what Adirondack Trust and Glens Falls National are doing and see if that special financing can be offered through another bank. I think there's that potential here.
Mhm.
So that's what I would say on the septic, but on lid, Chris, maybe you can answer that. The manual is the same. So the website has the same benefits educationally, as you say, Linda.
Has
But
there been much inquiry from the other municipalities around? Chestertown, Essex, Schroon Lake?
sure, there has. But, we have to say we have been working to make it function here
Right.
at George so that it can serve as a model. But we're hoping that through our partners like you, like the realtors and others, you'll get the word out and we'll create this network effect. We're just trying to be the pebble in the pond here. That's our goal.
Well, hopefully we can make some ripples with you.
Mhm.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. We would love that. Chris, do you have
Thank
anything?
you.
That's great, Linda. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just echo on what Eric said. Again, we like to say that we have the model here for protection. And, some of our partners are supervisors from outside the Lake George area, such as Matt Simpson over in Orkin. So, they are aware of our work. And, just because it says, how does this impact the lake? You can take out lake and just put river or another lake. It doesn't have to be Lake George. So again, it is just a model that others can use. And as Eric said earlier, we're glad to speak with any. I get calls all the time from people in other watersheds, other water bodies wanting to know.
Well, that's awesome. And I watched the Fund for Lake George annual report that you had. That 35-minute presentation was amazing. I can't thank you enough.
Well, thank you so much for watching it, Linda. That's
And-
terrific.
It's amazing.
That's
Good.
so nice.
That's a good endorsement, Linda. And I'll add in that is one of the links that everyone will be sent, and I will include that also in an upcoming newsletter. I wanted to add, because since Linda really spelled that out well, that it's educational for, even beyond the lakeshore border. All of you as realtors are looked to by consumers as purveyors of information and education, and looked to as the professional sources for things. And by all means, when you get these links, if you don't have them already, many of you have your own websites. You're welcome to and encouraged to, link these as informational things on your website. Use them in your social media posts and things like that to help spread that word around, because you've all got consumers, local and from afar, coming and looking at your brokerage and your individual websites. So anything you can do to help raise that awareness is terrific.
I just want to echo that. I mean, that's what this is all about. And, Linda's words are music to my ears. And having watched the annual meeting, Linda, you know that the one of the closing comments was a quote, and I'll probably botch it here, but I hope you'll.
Probably not.
But it's this one. There are very few problems that we cannot solve together.
Absolutely.
But there are no problems. Hold it. See, I got it wrong.
You're only human, Eric.
You know what? You gotta watch the.
There you go.
But there are.
That's the teaser. You
I've said it a million times. No, bear with me. I'm gonna read. I'm not gonna leave it hang. I'm not gonna leave it all hang. Here we are. There are no problems we cannot solve together, and very few that we can solve ourselves.
Yep.
So I had it backward, but and that's why we're on this call. That's why we're doing this, because unless we do this together, and unless we recognize what's at stake, which we all know, whether it's Lake George, Loon Lake, Schroon Lake, water is the future of life. It's the future of our economy. It's the future of everything, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's the common denominator that connects us. And it is so critical that we work together now more than ever. Sorry
Thank
for
you.
the quote, but you get the idea.
No.
And, that's how we're getting it done. We are.
Oh, you're
not
doing a phenomenal job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to let Dan do a little chime in here because he was our connectivity to this presentation.
I just want to say thank you to Chris and Eric for putting on a great presentation. You know, Lake George's water health, or all the other lakes, are very important to all of us, and you guys are spearheading many different programs that are keeping this clean and a beacon of hope for the rest of the world. I mean, like at last year's meeting, Lake George is actually on the, you know, we're getting better, and that's rare in today's world, you know, and it's all of us together doing it together. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Dan. So it's great working with you, and we look forward to working with SAR moving forward and each of you. So thank you very, very much.
Great. And we'll put, I will put both of your emails, addresses in my follow-up to our attendees, and also available to the rest of our membership. So if they have, you know, something they think of after the fact to ask, and they don't find the answer on the resources that we provide through you, they'll follow up.
Fantastic.
Thank you, everyone. Have a terrific weekend, and stay safe. And again, thank you to Chris and Eric for bringing us this great information. Take care. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
All right.